The building had no sign. No hours posted. Just an open shutter and a grease-dark floor where machines waited to be heard. The town called it Eli's place, but no one ever asked if Eli wanted it called anything. He never advertised. Didn't smile. Didn't small talk. But if something came in broken, he tried. That morning, he stood over a carburetor the size of his forearm, fingers working with quiet memory. A bolt clinked into a tray. Another lined up. Another vanished into its home like it had been waiting. A vehicle pulled in. Not local. Too new. Too shiny. A white 2024 Suburban parked outside with chrome wheels and Chicago plates. Out stepped a woman whose boots had never touched this kind of ground. Jeans that clung like armor. A white t-shirt without a single crease. She stepped forward, sunglasses unmoved, voice taut. Jessica. Eli Thompson. Eli looked up. Said nothing. Jessica. You're the one they say fixes the unfixable. No reply. Just a slow nod. He wiped his hands on a rag that had lived a harder life than most jackets. She popped the trunk. From it, she pulled a bulk of metal wrapped in canvas and dragged it to the concrete. It hit with a scrape that carried, not just weight, but warning. She yanked the tarp off like it offended her. Jessica. This engine's been through 3 engineers at Blake Automotive's R&D. All of them said it's toast. She stepped closer. Lowered her voice. Jessica. But someone told me you do miracles. Eli knelt slowly. Didn't touch it. Just studied it like it might flinch. Jessica. If you fix this. A beat. I'll marry you. The words weren't sweet. They were sharp. A jab dressed like a joke. A dare no one was supposed to take seriously. Eli didn't flinch. He stood, wiped his hands again. One nod. She blinked, momentarily unsure. Jessica. Seriously? Still no answer. She shook her head, turned back toward the vehicle. Jessica, muttering. You won't pull it off. But I'd love to see you try. She climbed back into the Suburban. Drove off without looking back. Eli stood with the ruined engine at his feet. He didn't sigh. Didn't frown. He walked to his workbench and began selecting tools, one by one, like someone preparing for surgery, or war. The engine wasn't just faulty, it was wrong. Its casing was scorched in odd places. Circuits twisted. Wiring inconsistent, as if the hands that built it were either careless or cruel. Eli circled it like a puzzle missing too many corners. One valve was clipped, not worn, cut. Sensors soldered backwards. Component mismatches that didn't even belong to the same model year. Not accident. Intention. Still, he said nothing. Just grabbed a crate from under the bench, slid out a battered notebook, flipped past old pages of gears and more gears. A blank one stared back. He didn't write formulas. Just shapes. Pressure zones. Angles. Things his fingers remembered even if no textbook did. By the time the sun dropped low outside, Jessica was gone. No goodbye. No second glance. But in a glass tower hundreds of miles away, she scrolled through her tablet with one leg crossed over the other, lips pulled into something cold. Jessica, to herself. He won't fix it. She didn't sound disappointed. She sounded interested. An engineer glanced up from across the room. Engineer. You gave the prototype to some garage guy? She didn't look up. Jessica. I want to see if he even has the guts to say no. The others chuckled. Another sipped from a can, eyes amused. Ryan Carter, project lead. With what that engine's worth, we could have sent it to MIT. He shook his head. Ryan. And it's in the hands of a guy who doesn't even wear gloves. Jessica didn't answer at first. Then, sharper. Jessica. Exactly. The room fell quiet for a breath too long. Twist number 1 revealed, subtly embedded. Her fingers tapped open a folder marked internal, R&D. A single file flashed open, report logs, flagged anomalies, rejected design alerts. She scrolled fast, not looking for data. Looking for confirmation. She knew. She'd sent something meant to fail. Jessica's gaze lingered on the screen. Jessica. I just want him to fail, where it hurts. Noah was 11, sharp-eyed, and carried curiosity like it might explode if he didn't hand it off fast enough. He nudged the garage door open just wide enough to peek through. Noah. That from a race car? Eli didn't look up. Just pointed at a frayed wire near the engine block. The boy stepped in, hesitating. Eli handed him a wrench. Just like that, no warning, no words, Noah was in. He crouched beside the machine, unsure but thrilled. Noah. What's wrong with it? Eli pointed again, this time to a damaged sensor. Noah's grin widened. By mid-morning, the engine looked less like a machine and more like a crime scene, every part stripped, cleaned, laid out in rows, precise, intentional. Each piece was tagged in marker, intake misaligned. Circuit jump. Intentional scoring. It wasn't repair. It was forensics. That's when she came back. No announcement. No drama. Jessica stepped inside wearing the same sharpness, but something behind her eyes had shifted. She froze mid-step. The thing she'd written off as junk, was now splayed out like a living organism under autopsy. Every bolt had purpose. Every flaw had been understood. She didn't speak at first. Just watched Eli as he adjusted the position of a gear with the care of someone aligning vertebrae. Then. Jessica. You took it apart like it mattered. Eli didn't answer. Didn't even acknowledge the statement. He just picked up a cloth and wiped his hands. Jessica, softer. 3 engineers said it wasn't worth the time. Still, nothing from him. She turned to leave, hesitated. Looked one more time at the spread-out map of failure restructured with surgical patience. She left quieter than she came. Just minutes later, the comm cracked. Boots stepped through the door like they owned the floor. Ryan Carter. Still. Ryan. You know that engine's worth more than this whole dump, right? He leaned closer, smile sharpening. Ryan. You break it worse, we charge you. Hell, we'll charge you for the dirt it touches. Noah froze mid-sweep, broom in hand, eyes locked on Eli. Waiting for noise. Or fire. Eli said nothing. Not yet. Ryan hovered near the engine like a vulture with a clipboard. Ryan. You really think you're going to make this work? He popped his gum, glanced around the garage with practiced disgust. Ryan. You know we could sue you for even opening this thing up, right? Maybe we will. Just for fun. Eli didn't react. He placed the last valve, wiped his hands, and reached for a switch. No ceremony. No announcement. Just a click. A hum pulsed through the machine, low, rhythmic. Not perfect, but undeniably alive. Ryan took a step back. His expression slipped for half a second before snapping back into sarcasm. Ryan. So what? It makes noise. Still worthless. No response from Eli. Ryan spat the gum into a tissue, turned for the door. Ryan. You break it more, you're paying for every screw. Hope you got a second rag to cry into. He left with words sharper than before, but his footsteps held less certainty. Later that evening, Noah returned. In his hands, a wrinkled paper bag. Noah. Donuts. Store was throwing them out. Eli took one silently, handed Noah a small object. It gleamed faintly. A bolt, newly polished. Noah stared at it like it mattered more than it should have. He didn't speak. Neither did Eli. Some thank yous were heavier without sound. Miles away, Jessica sat alone in her glass apartment, a screen glowing in front of her, but her attention on something older. A file. One she hadn't opened in years. Inside, sketches, concepts, fragments of a dream she'd once believed in. Repurposed engines. Modular vehicles. Designs for mobility, not luxury. She dragged her finger across the screen like she was brushing off dust. Her eyes didn't move like they were reading, they moved like they were remembering. The next day, she returned to Eli's garage. No boots. No shades. No posture. Just a worn hoodie. A folder in her hand. She didn't step in. Not yet. Jessica, quietly. I know I broke something. A pause. Jessica. But I want to build something real now. This wasn't damage control. It wasn't PR. Jessica Blake, the executive who once handed over Sabotage with a smile, now stood stripped of command. Not to supervise Eli. But to stand beside him. Jessica stood beside the reassembled engine, eyes scanning every wire, every seal. Her jaw tightened. Gaskets had been rerouted. Circuit maps rewritten. Nothing matched the schematics she knew by heart. And yet. It made sense. Not academically. Not corporately. Mechanically. She looked at Eli, who stood a few feet away, cleaning his hands with the same cloth as always. No speech. No explanation. Just a nod toward the old notepad sitting nearby. Jessica flipped it open. Page after page, hand-sketched adjustments, pressure flow redirection, balance modifications. Crude drawings. Brilliant logic. She didn't speak right away. Then. Jessica, softly. This shouldn't work. Her voice cracked slightly. Jessica. But it does. Eli gave no reaction. That's when the air shifted. Boots stomped in. Phones were already rolling. Ryan Carter. Time for the miracle show, huh? He stepped in like it was a stage he built. 2 engineers flanked him, both recording. Engineer 1, grinning. Let's get the magic on camera. Jessica turned toward them, lips tightening. She hadn't called them. She didn't stop them either. Ryan crossed his arms, smug. Ryan. All right, wizard. Let's see your tricks. Eli didn't acknowledge the circus forming around him. He adjusted a valve. Turned 2 dials. Then placed a hand gently on the ignition. A pause. Then, a flick. The engine didn't cough. It didn't hesitate. It roared. Not like a scream. Like a heartbeat redisco. Ryan blinked, just once. The engineers stopped recording, but their phones kept rolling. Ryan, forced. Well, I'll be damned. He clapped, sarcastic. Hollow. Ryan. So, Jessica. You marrying him now or what? Laughter. A weak attempt. One of the engineers nudged the other. Engineer 2, laughing. Better get the rings ready. Jessica didn't respond. She didn't smile. She just looked at Eli, who had already turned away. Later that night, the garage stayed lit, but Eli didn't pick up a single tool. He sat alone, elbows on his knees, watching the quiet stillness of unfinished shelves. The engine had spoken. But something inside him hadn't. The video hit 12 million views by morning. A simple clip. Jessica's dare. Eli's silence. The engine's roar. Ryan's joke. Noah in the corner, broom in hand. It didn't need editing. The story told itself. Comment sections flooded. Give him the ring. You said it. Now own it. That man built dignity from dirt. And you laughed. Jessica watched the footage again and again. Not for Eli. For herself. The way her voice carried. The way she didn't speak when it mattered. She called. Voicemail. She emailed. No reply. Finally, she drove. The garage door was half shut. Noah sat on an old crate outside like a tiny sentinel. She stepped out. Jessica. I just want to explain. Noah looked up, not with awe, not with anger. Just clarity. Noah. You laughed. Jessica flinched. Noah. You stayed quiet. Silence. Jessica's mouth opened, but nothing useful came out. Noah turned his gaze back to the door. Noah. What are you explaining now? Jessica stepped back, unsure for the first time since she arrived in this town. She left. Later that afternoon, an elderly woman appeared at the edge of the lot. She didn't knock. Didn't ask. Just walked toward the crate and sat beside Noah. Her hands held a small envelope. Her steps had weight, but not weakness. Noah glanced at her, recognizing the quiet before she even spoke. Noah. Mrs. She nodded slowly, her eyes on the closed garage. Mrs. Helen. Is he okay? Noah. He's still fixing. Just not the engine. Mrs. Helen smiled faintly, her voice carrying something heavier than sorrow, memory. Mrs. Helen. People think he's always been like this. Quiet. Shut off. She paused. Mrs. Helen. But he used to smile. He had a wife. Rachel. And a daughter. Emily. Noah looked up. Mrs. Helen. They lived in New Mexico. There was an accident. Highway pileup. They didn't make it. Her voice didn't shake. It landed. Mrs. Helen. He came here after the funeral. Didn't talk for months. Just worked. Then someone brought him a busted motorbike. He didn't fix it for money. He fixed it to breathe again. Noah didn't speak. Some stories aren't meant to be answered. Only heard. He turned his eyes to the closed door. So did she. Eli's silence wasn't defense. It was grief in motion. Every bolt he turned wasn't about the engine, it was about not forgetting. Fixing things, was how he kept breathing. The next evening, the door creaked open. Jessica stood there. Alone. No badge. No audience. No defense. A small notebook in her hand. A different weight in her eyes. Eli didn't look up. He was seated on the floor beside the engine, not repairing, just observing it. Jessica stepped forward, slowly. Jessica. I'm not here for the motor. She held out the notebook. Her voice was steady, but not strong. Jessica. This was my first project. Before titles, before policies. She placed it beside him, not demanding he take it. Just, placing it. Jessica. Public transport. Low-cost mobility. Modular designs. I believed in it once. Eli said nothing. He flipped open the first page. Looked for a long moment. Then, quietly, he pulled a pencil from behind a crate. And began to draw. Not to correct. Not to lecture. To continue. Jessica didn't speak again. She just watched his hand move, and in it, saw something she hadn't felt in years. Collaboration. By the weekend, news circled through quiet channels. Eli had declined Blake Automotive's formal offer. No negotiation. No press. Just a polite envelope left unread. 2 days later, something louder leaked. An internal report. Authenticated. Unfiltered. The engine Jessica delivered. Deliberately sabotaged. Design files showed false circuit alignments. Notes mismatched with parts. Modifications introduced under Ryan Carter's credentials. A signature confirmed it. It wasn't a broken prototype. It was a loaded trap. The file spread like wildfire inside the company. Jessica didn't tweet. Didn't issue a statement. She walked into the director's office with the printed file in hand. Dropped it gently on the desk. The director looked up, confused. She didn't wait. Jessica. I don't work where dignity is mocked. She turned and left the room. No applause. No one followed. She didn't need noise. This time, she spoke loud enough in silence. They didn't put up a banner. No ribbon. No slogan. Just a wide building with clean tables, strong benches, and enough room for ideas to stretch. They called it, the workshop. Not Eli's. Not Blake's. Just ours. Inside, people showed up, not because of ads or resumes, but because they had something to build. A student with a theory. A mechanic with scarred hands. A welder from the border. No business cards. Just wrenches and whiteboards, sketches and soldering. Eli didn't run the place. He anchored it. Jessica didn't lead from the front. She stood beside. Noah, now more confident, rolled in his first working prototype, a hybrid bike built from recycled scraps. Everyone gathered around as he flipped the switch. A low hum. 2 wheels turning. Eli crouched, examined the alignment, and stood up. Eli. It works. Noah lit up like it meant the world. Because it did. Weeks later, Jessica stood on a clean stage at a national tech forum. Behind her, no logos. Just a photo of the workshop. She spoke briefly. No slides. Jessica. Some pill. And I thank both. Because the doubters made us build better. She turned slightly, then stepped aside. Jessica. Meet our co-founder and lead designer, Eli Thompson. Eli walked up. No suit. No notes. Just hands still marked with the memory of steel. He stepped to the mic, held it. Paused. Then set it down. Eli. You've all talked enough already. Come see what we make. Laughter. But this time, respectful. After the event, Eli stepped outside. A man waited across the pavement. No car. No sunglasses. No gum. Ryan. His voice wasn't loud. Wasn't smug. Ryan. I'm not here to apologize. I know that wouldn't be enough. A pause. Ryan. I got fired. Deserved it. He glanced at the building. Ryan. Thank you, for not becoming like us. He turned and walked away, not forgiven, but not the same. Ryan wasn't the villain anymore. Not redeemed. But aware. Even broken systems leave room for recognition. Not everyone is worth saving, but some are worth watching change. Late evening, after the forum had emptied and the cameras were gone, Jessica sat on a spare tire beside Eli, 2 mugs between them. She wasn't nervous. Just reflective. Jessica. Remember when I said I'd marry you if you fixed that engine? She wasn't smiling. Not teasing. Just bringing it back, not as a joke, but as a reminder of who she'd been. Eli didn't laugh. But the corner of his mouth lifted, faint, like a crack in stone letting in light. Eli. I didn't fix the engine. He looked at her. Eli. We fixed something else. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The next morning, Eli stood beside Jessica on a national stage. But this time, the spotlight didn't define him. People clapped not because of a viral video, but because they'd read his sketches, seen his builds, and learned from his silence. He wasn't a fluke anymore. He was a founder. Back home, the workshop continued to hum. People came with questions. Not all of them about machines. Some about process. Some about purpose. No one checked credentials. Only contributions. No gatekeeping. Just hands building, voices sharing, and the space to fail forward. Noah led a team of young builders through their first group design. Jessica adjusted a wire configuration on a communal table. Eli walked past both, quietly, intentionally. He didn't direct. He observed. Like a man who trusted what he'd helped shape. Later that evening, he sat alone at the same bench where it all began. No machine in front of him. Just a blank sheet. A pencil in hand. He paused for a second. Then wrote across the top corner in neat, sure letters. Build something that doesn't ask permission. Then he drew the first line. Not an engine. Not a logo. Just the beginning of whatever came next.